what we are coming up with is uh, the Dynamo course and C Sharp and all those things will be at a free of cost so that everybody can learn, automate your daily task that whatever you are doing, and let's get productive and let's try to get more and more in lesser time. Let's say it's very simple. Um, do the work which is, let's say, 10 साल का काम हमें 3-4 साल में अगर करना है तो we have to align it, we have to get those skills, sharpen those skills which are very accurate and which should be there. It's a tough actually to learn the Dynamo and C Sharp, but what we are doing here is I'll again tell you, it's very difficult to learn it from the recorded session as you cannot ask to the expert or mentor anything about it. Okay, so that is why I mean most of the people are facing this issue to learn because many times many people have attempted to learn it, but learning it is very difficult actually without if you don't ask, if you cannot ask questions to the experts, then it is very difficult to learn. So that's why we are here to guide you, we are here to mentor you. So I'll hand over this to Saurav. You can introduce
Sure.
and we can start with the session.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, everyone. So just let me share my screen and get started. Sagar, I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you
Okay.
loud and clear. No issues.
Yeah, cool. So welcome everyone to this introduction to visual programming with Dynamo. So first, let me introduce myself. I am Shurab Ganguly. I'm an architect who builds both buildings and softwares. I'm currently working with Jacobs on the Neom Volt project, which is a part of the line development in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I have experience in, apart from Dynamo, I have programming experience in C Sharp, Python, JavaScript, and things like that. I have two published apps in Autodesk App Store. So you can go and search. One of them is Formwork Tools, and other is 5DB Productivity Tools. I'm a pass out from Indian Institute of Engineering, Science, and Technology, Shibpur. Okay, that's all about me. Now moving on. So the first question, what we will be learning today? So we will be starting with the introduction of Dynamo for Revit. We will be starting it from the scratch. Like you don't need to have any previous knowledge of Dynamo before starting this. Okay. Though you will require a basic knowledge of Revit because whatever we will be doing with Dynamo will be dependent upon what you can do with Revit basically. We will also cover what is nodes and what is visual programming and how it is different, say, from programming with Python or C Sharp or things like that, and how we should approach a problem when trying to solve it in Dynamo. Okay. So how we will be learning? So we have all like there is one process of learning where you learn each of the theories first and then you do the application. We will be taking a different route. We will be starting with a project based learning. So we'll be starting with a problem and we'll be introducing the theories as we required as we move on to say more complex problems, and we will be go back and learning those theories. And whatever I'm doing, you can start your own Revit and follow along, like it can be hands on. Okay, so let's start. I will just shift to Revit now. I will give everyone a few minutes to start their own Revit sessions. That will be helpful if you follow along with me as I speak. It will be helpful, and anytime you have a doubt you can raise your hand or we can take it up. Okay. Okay, so let's start. So as you can see, I have a simple Revit project open over here, and let's start Dynamo. So Dynamo can be accessed from the Manage tab using this Dynamo button. There is another option called Dynamo Player, which will be covering at a later stage. But for now, let's just click on this and wait for the Dynamo screen to open. Just give it some time. Yeah. Yeah. So here we have the Dynamo screen. Let me. So this can be broken down into a few portions. The first is the files portion, where we can create a new one. create custom nodes, or open our existing Dynamo file. Then there's a recent portion, which is just recent files of all the recent scripts that I have been working on, along with a few quick links to the Dynamo discussion forum and the Dynamo official website, along with a few learning references. So if you are starting Dynamo for the first time, you may be having some terms and conditions to agree to for the first time when you run it. But once you do, this is the first screen that you should see. The screen may vary slightly depending upon the Revit version you are, but most of the things should be the same. So to start Dynamo, the first task we should do is click on New. Any questions till this point? Like how to start Dynamo and access the basic screen?
Hello, sir. Am I audible to
Yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah.
I want to know that I have the crack version of Revit, so that when the internet is on, then it gives an error for accessing Revit.
Uh,
So how can I tackle that?
so that you are asking me something illegal that I cannot help you with. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Hmm, uh,
But for this course, I have to buy the Revit
you can
license.
you use a viewer. I'm not using a Dynamo. I'm using a Revit viewer to use Dynamo. If you don't have a license, also it works. Or you get a student license. That also works. Okay.
Sir, what is this viewer?
Yeah.
Sir, what is this viewer?
I cannot under hear you properly. Can you please repeat?
I'm saying that what is this viewer that you are telling?
Rohit, your voice is not clear actually. It's
Yeah,
coming
Sagar,
very,
can you understand?
yeah.
Yeah, I could not understand
No,
him.
even
Yeah.
I
Saurav
cannot
sir,
hear.
he is asking that what is viewer? You are saying that if you have not
Oh,
the
okay,
license, then
okay. So if you have any Revit trial version installed, you can just type in Revit Viewer, and this will come. There is Revit 2023 and Revit Viewer 2023. So Viewer can open any Revit files, and you can work with. You can just not save with it. Okay. So if you're a student, I would suggest get a student license. Okay. Or just install the 30 days trial of Revit and then just type in Revit Viewer. You can use all functionality. You can do full Dynamo, like, because that has nothing to do with basic Revit. Okay. Dynamo is kind of delinked from Revit. Okay. So yeah, okay. Coming back. So this is the Dynamo screen that you comes up once we open the Dynamo tab. So on the side, this is the node library. So you can see it's grouped under a number of terms such as display, geometry, input, math, Revit, and so on. So if we expand down, you can see these are quite large lists. Okay. We will be covering some of this. Okay, but this is quite huge. Mm, yeah. So just one thing to note over here, you can see beside every node, there is this symbol of a plus, of a zigzag, or a question mark. So this stands when we are obtaining some information from a element of the Revit model. We use this type of nodes. If you see this, it means it's modifying something. And if you see this, it means it's adding something. Okay. So we will now go and add our first node. So one way to work in Dynamo is whenever you want to do something, say you want to add a point to your Dynamo script. So the first thing you do over here is go in and type point. And you will see a number of options pop up. Okay. So if we click on this, so we have put the first node block on our screen. Okay, and you can see it has two portions. One is the left hand side, which is X, Y, Z, and another is the right hand side, which is the point. So everything that is on the left is always the input, and everything on the right is the output. So you can see over here, if I click on this, you can see a point has appeared over here in the Dynamo screen. So because this code is running, now you can change this input. Say we want to give the X, Y, Z coordinates. Let's again go back over here and type in number. Hence, we want to give the separate coordinates of it. Okay, so we have a number node over here. And you can see each of this, if I hover mouse over here, has a default value, which is set to 0. So now the point initially is getting created at the origin, which is at 0, 0, 0. Now if I take a number and say type it in 5 over here and put the same in the X command, you can see the point has moved. Similarly, if I just Control C it and Control V to create another one of it and put it on the Y axis, you can see again the point has moved. So Dynamo works via a very simple thing. So each node is a particular function or a particular task that Dynamo is supposed to do. And each node receives the input and gives the output. So here in this case, the numbers were the input. This was the function that the node was doing, as you can see by this thing. And then the point was the output. What we do in Dynamo is basically string together a number of nodes together to create the functionality we want. For example, like if I go a little bit more and I say I want another point and I want to create a line. So line at the very basic requires 2 points, right? So I have one of my points over here. I can take this, Control C, Control V this, create my second point, which I say created at 10, 10. Okay. Now you can see on the screen I have 2 points, which was earlier there one. Now I want to create a line. So I can go over here and type in simply line. So you can see the line command comes and the line command takes 2 input. One is the start point and one is the end point. So if I input this over here and this one over here, you can see now there is a line. Okay. Now you can see like when I'm zooming in and zooming out, the node portion of it is getting modified, but I cannot zoom into the geometry of it. If in order to switch to the geometry mode, you can simply click over here. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. You can click over here and click on switch to geometry view. So now you can easily zoom into the geometry that is being created by the nodes, and you can see this has become shaded. Now if you want to go back to the node view, simply click on switch to node view. So in Dynamo, you will be mainly working with 2 views. One is the node view and one is the geometry view. Okay, and you can switch on by right clicking and going to switch to geometry view, and again right clicking and going back to switch to node view. So here we have the line that we created, and if we click on this, you can see this line becomes highlighted. So if we want to say now move this line at an angle, like currently it's restricted to the X and the Y plane, and we want to move it on along the Z plane. So currently you can see for line 2, for this point, the Z value I can see is defaulted to 0. But I can change this easily by simply copying in another node over here and plugging it in. And you can see it has automatically updated. Okay, so if I don't want the line to be so much sloped, I can make it 5. And you can see. So we can play around with these numbers and modify the geometry that's being generated automatically because it's all based upon a logic. So in order for the line, it needed 2 points, which we created. And those 2 points created the line. Okay, so this is like totally basics of Dynamo, like taking each node, taking an input, giving an output, a number of nodes being chained together to create a more complex output. Anyone has any questions till now? I hope everybody is like following along, doing it in their machine, like as I am showing. Anybody facing any issues not being able to generate or any issues or anything like that? Any questions? Okay. Okay. So this is the basics of how a node and Dynamo works. But now we can go even further and create more lines and so on. But that's the geometrical portion of Dynamo. So throughout this course, what we will be focusing on, we will be focusing on doing practical challenges and solving them. So let me just close this for now. Okay, just one more thing I would like to cover before I close this. So you can see as I am changing these parameters, like making this say 6, the geometry is automatically updating. While if you are doing something simple like a line, it's very easy to do. It's not too big of an issue. But if you are working with complex geometry and with every change this geometry preview updates, it may slow down your computer and make it almost impossible to edit the script. So in those situations, what you can do is you can simply switch this from automatic at the bottom to manual. So once you have done manual, you can see this run command will come. And now if I say change this to say 10, geometry will no longer update because it's not running automatically. I click on this and then it will update. And similarly, if I change it back to 2, again, nothing happens because it's not running. I have to press this button and then it will update. Okay. So it's recommended when you're creating a script which is say pretty complex, you set this to manual so that it does not affect your computer performance while you're developing the script. Okay. Now let's delete this. If nobody has any questions regarding this, we will move on to the next part of it. Okay. I guess there is no questions. Yeah. So let me just minimize Dynamo and come back to Revit. So whenever you're trying to automate something, the first thing is you have to be very clear what you are trying to automate. Okay. And whether you can actually do it in Revit. So if there is something that you cannot do it in Revit, it's most likely that you cannot do it with Dynamo also. Okay. Dynamo may allow you to do it faster, but it has to be possible to do it within Revit to do it within Dynamo. Okay, apart from geometry objects in which Dynamo has an advantage. So in this particular scenario, you can see we have a room, and let me add something to this room thing. Let me add a parameter. So we will do a very common thing that we encounter oftentimes when doing projects is we have certain data in certain parameters such as the room name, but we need to transfer it into a more appropriate other parameter name to meet with certain information requirements. For example, we are taking an example of the say the Kobe space room. Okay, so let me just create this parameter. Yeah. So we have this. Yeah. So we have this parameter called now Kobe space room. Now in a project we may have multiple rooms. Okay, and we need to fill in the Kobe space name for each. So manually what we'll doing, we will be copying it like this, pasting it like this, and this is the manual way to do it. But this is extremely time consuming to do, right? Especially now for one room it may be easy, but in your projects there may be thousands and thousands of rooms. So how do you do with like with so many rooms? You cannot individually copy paste each room and do it, right? So to overcome this kind of challenges, Dynamo is the best tool to use. Okay, so I have it. So now if I break down the steps, okay, if I just open a note, it will be easier. So the thing is, before you start doing anything in Dynamo, it's important to understand what steps are involved. So when I'm doing this task manually in Revit, I'm first selecting the room, then I'm reading whatever the room name is from the name parameter. I'm copying it with the Control C command, and then I'm pasting it in, right? So if I was to write down the 3 steps that I am doing, just 1 second. Yeah. So the first step is selecting the room. Sorry, just 1 second. Yeah. Selecting the room. The next step is obviously obtaining the room name, whatever it is, whether it's room in this case or something else in some other case. The second step is obtaining the room name. And the third step is adding the room name to the Kobe space name parameter. Update adding the room name to the Kobe space name. This is our custom parameter, right? So these are the three steps we are doing. So now let me just change the scenario a little bit to understand where Dynamo will help us the most. Instead of having one room, which we can manually easily do, let's have multiple rooms. Okay. And as you can see, the room number has changed, but and say some of the rooms are, this is living room, like just giving it a name, bedroom, room, so on, just creating a little bit of variation, bedroom two, and so on. Like you can understand, like different names for different rooms. Now we can do it from a schedule, like copy paste all the data from the room parameter into the Kobe space name parameter, which you can see is just room over here because that's we copied from, and it has not correctly updated. But the best way to solve a problem like this is to use Dynamo. Okay, so as we update, we can run the script and update this parameter itself. So now we have broken down our task for each of the rooms. We need to do these three tasks, and we approximately have how many rooms over here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 rooms. So we have to do this task 8 times, right? And if it's a bigger project, we will be ending up doing it a much more number of times because it will obviously have much more rooms. So because this is a simple task repeated multiple times, this is perfect for automating in Dynamo. So let's now switch over to Dynamo, and we will be following the same logic as this. So the first task is getting the room. So how do we select a room in Dynamo? Okay, that's the first challenge. So how we do it? We go, if you can see over here, a number of items are listed over here. Okay, the first thing you should go to when working with Revit is the Revit tab, which is this. Open it. So there are a lot of options over here, but you can see there is something called selection over here, which matches with our first task, which is selecting the room. Okay, so let's expand the selection tab further to see what are the options available for selecting elements from within Dynamo. So you can see it has a lot of options. Like I understand if you're looking at it the first time, this may be like information overload, but this is how this table is also organized. Like this menu is organized. If you want to work with Revit elements, you go to the Revit tab, and then if you want to select something from Revit, you go into the selection tab. Okay. Now you can see there are a lot of options over here. Okay, like face and lot of ways to select objects from Revit. Okay. We will be using this for our first task, which is selecting elements by category. Because we simply want all the rooms in the project, right? We want to select the room, which we know is a particular category in Revit. Okay. And we want to select all the rooms, right? So we have clicked on this and we have a node over here which says category on one side and element on the other. Okay. And you can see even if we run it, nothing happens and it gives you a null value. That is because it needs the input for it to run. Okay. And it doesn't have a default defined. So what you can do over here is within the selection field, you can find something called categories listed over here. If you click on this, it will give you. So one more thing that I should mention over here, as you scroll, you will get a small description of what that particular node does. So if I go over here, it tells you specifically it gets all the elements of the specified category from the Revit model. Similarly, what this is a built-in list of all the Revit categories that are there in the project. So if we go over here, we can see there is this drop down. If you click on this, you can see a list of items have come up. Okay. This is a quite large list. This is the total list of all elements that are there in Revit. All element categories, I mean. Yeah. So if I scroll down over here, RAMs, scroll down more, I should get the rooms. Yeah, so rooms. I selected and I plug this in like how I showed. So now you can see the red, which was earlier there, has now blue got turned into blue as it understands it gets a valid input. So if I press run again and go over here, you can see it has got 8 items. Okay, if you move your mouse cursor over here, it will show you what the node has outputted. This is like you can see there are the rooms along with the ID of each of the rooms noted over here. So another way, if you want to see an ID of the room instead of going over here and clicking on this, you can get the and use the watch node. You can go over to the search and type in simply watch. You can see watch will come under display. So you click on this and connect the output of the node over here. Click run, and you see the same list. Okay. So one important thing to note when working with lists in programming or with Dynamo is everything starts from zero. One is not the first item on the list. It's always zero, which may be something when we are counting in the real world, we say we will count 10 items as 1, 2, 3, 4. But in the programming, it always starts with a zero. So if there are 8 items over here, as you can see over here, it starts with zero and the last number is 7. Okay. This is like applicable to all programming language. Like this is not only Dynamo. Even if you're doing any other programming language, it's the same thing. The position always starts from zero. So this is something to keep in mind when working with list in any programming language. Okay. So now we have a list of rooms obtained from Dynamo, as you can see over here. Any questions so far? We will then go on to the next task, which is obtaining the room name. Any queries or any questions, somebody not being able to follow along or any issues? Is there a question in the chat? Okay. Okay. Moving on. I hope everybody has been able to follow along and are doing the same thing in their own machines and software, because if you don't follow along, you will just forget this. Okay. So coming to the next step, we have the rooms. We want the room name, which is say living room or bedroom, whichever it is, which was step 2 in our process, because which we are copying the room parameter data from the name from here to here. So we need to obtain this. As we are obtaining it by clicking on this and clicking on this parameter in Revit, we need to do the same thing in Dynamo. So we come over here and then we need the information. So like there is this command available, so which is very one of the most used commands, which is get parameter value. You can type in get parameter value over here. Sometimes the search doesn't work properly. Not this. Okay. So in case the search is not working, you can go to Revit, go to elements, scroll down and go to elements again. Here you will find a number of nodes that allow you to get information regarding particular Revit elements. So we will use the get parameter value by name node over here. Okay. So we have put this node and now let's see what it asks for as an input. I can see it takes an input of a Revit element and of a parameter name. If we move our cursor over here, if we move our cursor over here, it tells you it takes the name of the parameter whose value you want to, and it writes something called string at the bottom. So in string in programming simply means text. Okay. Like it's the same thing. What we will call a text in normal language is called a string in programming. So what it tells me is this parameter name needs to be inputted into this node as a string. So how do I get a string? So the easiest way is again to go to the search bar and simply type in string and see what comes up. You can see we get an option under basics, which is string. We click on this and this node appears. Okay. And you can see you can type in anything over here, like any text you can type in over here. So here we finally need to type in the name of the parameter that we want. and which is in this case, if I go back to Revit, which is name. This is the parameter name, right? And this is the parameter value. So the parameter is name, NAME. So we have to type in exactly that. Like the typing in of the name should be perfect. Like if it's small n, it won't work. So we first connect the string, and you can see this turns blue, means it accepts the data type input that it got. And then we connect this elements. How do we know this is the correct thing? Because you can see the output of this is elements. Okay. And these are all Revit elements, and this takes the input as Revit element. So we connect it like this from this node to this node. So we have it like this. We have now covered two steps. The first step, let me delete the watch node because okay, no, we can keep it also, not an issue. So if I segregate what I have done till now, I have first step. I can okay. So this is something I will cover later, but you can create groups with the create groups option in Dynamo just to group your graph together into small chunks of code so that it's easier to understand. So the first step was very simple, obtaining or selecting the elements from Revit, selecting all rooms from Revit, which was our first task. So this is done. We don't need to worry about it, and we can see all rooms are getting selected correctly. And the next task was getting the name of each of the rooms that we selected. So if we run this command now, we can see whether we have succeeded in that or not. You can see we have the room names over here like dining room, bedroom, living room. So that means we have succeeded. So let's add a watch node again. Okay. So yeah. So you can see all the rooms are properly selected. So let's make this step 2 of our thing. Just right click and I will create this into another group. Name rooms. So currently we have achieved the first two tasks out of the three tasks that we had to achieve uh, in order to make obtain the automation that we wanted, which is like transferring the room name to the Kobe space name parameter. Okay, automatically for all of these names. We have already achieved the first two steps. Now we have to achieve the third step, which is this one, adding the room name to the Kobe space name parameter. Okay, so here what we would have been doing manually, we would be copying like this and pasting it like this, right? Okay, so we will be doing almost exactly the same thing in Dynamo, just a little bit differently. Okay, so we have the Kobe space name over here. We will go on to the next thing. Since we already have the name over here and we have the elements rooms, we need a way to set the parameter. So there is a command called set parameter in Revit, which we can obtain again by going to Revit, going to elements, elements under elements, and then going to yeah, set parameter by name. It clearly gives you a description that it sets one of the elements parameters, the element in this case being the room, okay, by the given value. Okay, so let me get the node over here. So you can see over here we have the node, okay, which is called element.set parameter by name. And now you can see it takes a number of inputs, the first of which is elements. So we should ask what will be the element, which is the Revit element of whose parameters we are trying to set in this case. The answer is pretty simple. It is the rooms. We have already obtained the rooms at the first step, right? So we can just move this little bit down. Take a connection from here. Taking a connection is very easy. You just click it and then drag it over here and connect it. So you can see it turns blue. So that means we have already got the first of the three inputs required for this node to work, which is the elements, which we know are the rooms that we already selected. The next task was setting the parameter. So which is the parameter name that we want? You can see like the previous node that we got used, if I click on here, it tells us that it is the name of the parameter to set, and we can see that the input is a string. Okay, so if we go over here and again just type in string, we get this. And again, this has to be exactly what is it in there. It is in Revit, which is Kobe.space name. Okay, so Kobe.space name. We do it over here, and yeah, let me just recheck the naming once. Yeah, so the naming is correct. And then the value, like what is the value we want to add to this parameter, and we already have this list over here. Okay, so we take this value list and put it into the value object over here. Okay, so now we more or less have automated the all three tasks which we wanted to do in order to achieve our objective. So this was the third part. Let me group this into as well. Update. Okay. So this is the third part. Yep. So these three separate tasks together helps us achieve what we want. Now, if we go back to our Revit model, sorry. Now, if we go back to our Revit model once and say we take this dining room, you can see the parameter Kobe space name parameters are not updated. So in order to update it, we simply need to go over here and press run. So and you can see run has completed, and I see some output over here as well. So that means it has run successfully in Revit. So if I go over here and select this, you can see this parameter has automatically been updated. And not only for this room, it has been updated for each and every other room as well. And it doesn't matter if there are 10 rooms or 10,000 rooms. It will update all of them the same. And say there is some change. Say I change this, which was earlier room, to say, what will I say, balcony, just as an example. The thing is, if I have to do it manually, I have to keep track and update this parameter as well every time I do it. But if I do it with Dynamo, I can simply go over here and click run again. And now if I select this, you can see it's automatically updated. If I want to change balcony to something else, balcony plus say large balcony or something like that, like just as an example, some information changes. Okay. I simply just need to go over here and run the script again. And you can see it will automatically change this data as well. So what I have done is I have with a simple script sync the data between the name parameter and the Kobe space name parameter. Okay. And as it often happens with IFC or Kobe, like the parameter has each, like this system of classifications has specific parameters into which particular data should exist, like the type or the IFC GUID and things like that. What this script allows us to do is make the sync between a inbuilt Revit parameter and a custom defined parameter like the Kobe space name a single click process. No need to export schedules, do Excel, VLOOKUP, and all of that thing just to maintain the same data in two parameters. Every time you click this, it will automatically update. Okay. Any questions so far? Like if you have followed along, you have your first script ready in Dynamo. Let me just save this. Parameter. This is a very simple thing that we did over today. We will be covering much more complex things going forward. So as a first step, it's important like how we solve a problem in Dynamo is clear. And this is the approach we will be taking going forward for everything. Okay, we have not covered everything. We have not covered things like what is a list, what is list map, and what are the so many other functions over here. But the style type we are gonna go this course is we are gonna take the challenge first and learn what we need to for that challenge. Okay, so in this challenge, we covered one of the basic methods of selecting elements in Revit. So I have selected rooms over here, but you can do this with any other param object as well. You can do the same thing with walls. Okay, and then updating the parameter. Okay, obtaining a particular parameter which we did over here, which is the name thing, and then updating it with this thing. Okay, so these three steps and these three are the most common things you will be doing when you are doing any kind of automation in Revit, and there will be other more complexities we will be adding as we go forward. Okay, but it's important that this first step that you are able to do. So anyone facing any questions or challenges or any doubt, like if everybody is quiet, it's difficult to understand whether it's people are being able to follow along or not. Any doubts? Anyone? Or
No, no doubt as of now.
okay, cool. Okay, so once you're done, just click on the save button. Okay, and that will save your script in the anywhere on the desktop, and as a dyn give it a name and save it so that you can reuse it later also. Okay, so now if I just close it, this should now start appearing in your recent projects as well. Like I just saved it, so this appeared. Okay, okay, so now I'm just going to use this to explain a few other concepts that you may encounter when you're trying to make this node. So for example, we have not covered warnings till now. So let me make a small modification to the code, which will lead us to getting a warning. So let me run it. So you can see over here that this is giving a null value. Okay, because this name doesn't exist. Okay, similarly, if we make a mistake over here and say write a small s or anything like that and run it, okay, you can see it gave an error. And when it gives an error, you can simply go over this warning symbol which appears on top, and it will tell you what is not working. It's saying no parameter found by that name. So what it means is the name that you have typed in, okay, that it is not being able to find any parameter with that name. So it tries to tell you exactly what is wrong with the input you have given. So you change it to S and it will correct. Okay. And I will give another example. Instead of putting the elements over here, if I put the connect this node over here instead of doing this, and instead of connecting the elements over here, I connect this. Okay, like just mess it up and down, and I run it. You can see it has given a warning, but the warning this time is different. So it's saying what it's saying over here is element or set parameter by name, which is the name of the node. Okay, expects the arguments. Arguments over here simply means the inputs, which are elements, parameter name, and value, which should be of this the following type, like Revit element, string, and var, but was called with this. But by called means which was it simply means was inputted with a string. So what we need to do over here is we need to simply compare this list and this list. So I can see it wants a Revit elements by elements, but I'm giving it a string, and it wants a string, but I'm giving it a Revit element.room. Okay. So one of the important skills is when you are working with Dynamo or any programming language is debugging. Okay, because whenever you're writing your own script, the first time you will run it, it's not supposed to, like, it never happens that it runs perfectly. You will always get an error, and it's important that you look at the error and understand what you need to correct, so that, look, now I corrected it as per whatever the warning says, and I press null, and you can see the warning has disappeared. Okay, so that is the advantage, like, of doing something with Dynamo is it's rapid. The feedback is instant. Okay. If there is a warning, it will give a feedback and you can update it and then extend it all you want. Okay. Okay. So that's all. Like what I would suggest you try something like if anybody can volunteer and tell me like how they would do this. Like for each room, if I have something say in the mark column, say I have read it, I have 22, 122, and I want to copy it into the comments column. Can someone tell me like what modifications needs to be done to this script in order to obtain that objective? Like how should you modify this script that I just wrote for the rooms to use it for the walls to transfer the mark value to the comments? Like do the same thing, copy one parameter to another, but instead of doing it with a room, we want to do it with the walls. Anyone would like to volunteer and suggest what changes needs to be done? Anyone?
Just we need to change the name. Instead of name, we should put a mark, and the other parameter was,
Yeah. So what I want, I am telling you,
yeah.
I want, I want to copy the parameter from the mark, which is this, into the comments. Okay. And each of
Okay.
my walls, I may give some other mark or other value, and I want it to be automatically happens for all the walls. Okay. So I want you to tell me what changes should I do in this script over here in order to obtain that. Okay.
Okay.
So
So first,
yeah.
we need to change the element to like first the categories we need to change to walls.
Okay. Correct.
Yeah, and then we'll get the elements.
Okay. You're correct. Because whatever I was collecting rooms, the step remains the same. I just need to change it to collect walls. Correct.
Yes.
Next.
Yeah. Then second thing will be the string, the name which have
Yeah.
written name. We need to
Yeah.
change it to mark.
Okay. Okay.
And
Anything else?
second thing, yeah, in the update room parameter, the string is Kobe space name. That needs to be changed to
Comments.
comments.
You're correct. You're absolutely correct. What you said. Yeah. So now, if you run this script, you can see it has copied. So what I did is we created a simple script, and if you understand the logic of the script, you can make modification to fit your use cases. Okay, and then you can combine multiple together also. Like, is this clear to everyone? Like how these simple scripts work, and like I would suggest you go and use it in your use case. Like if you have a particular use case in your project that you're working on where you're using schedules or some other thing to transfer one parameter to another, try to use this script and it will make your life easier. If you face any problems or think, oh no, I want to do something different, then we can modify the script to get it done. So that's the advantage of Dynamo. If you use a plugin, it's restricted. It can only go one way. You cannot modify it. But here you can modify it. If I give you a script that copies parameters for room, if you know Dynamo, you can modify it to copy parameters from walls or different parameters altogether. Okay. So like like even if you can't write a script, if you can modify and understand the logic of the script, that will also make help you a lot, because a lot of the scripts are already available for free in the market. Yeah. Yeah. So
Can we
that's,
just
yeah.
can we add two parameters? Like, can we add two strings together with the script?
Yeah, we can. Not with this script. We can do it. Okay. We
Okay.
can do
Okay.
screen script manipulation. We can do booleans. We can do a lot of other challenge. Okay.
Okay.
So this I'm not gonna cover today, but this is something I would ask you to come up with a particular use case, which two parameters you want. Okay, to join together, but you can. Okay, say if you want the room number and the room name to be combined and written into one parameter, that can be done. Okay, but
Yeah.
then we have to add that step over here.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so today I'm gonna stop at that because today was our first session.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into everything. The goal of today was mainly to show how Dynamo works, and we are going to do the sessions like this only. Like it's going to be a challenge that we'll be solving. Okay, so next day we may be going into strings and combining strings. Third day we may be using Boolean mask and how to filter out elements. I'm not gonna cover what will I say, like these are lists and this is how you transfer parameters and things like that. We are gonna take a practical use case, solve the problem, and learn the theory associated with it as we go along. We have not covered a lot of things today. Like Dynamo is huge. Okay. So instead of doing 10 theories, we will do a project-based approach. Okay. Like what you suggested today, this we will be covering in the next session. Like how to combine two parameters. We will be adding this step. Okay. But
Yeah, okay, okay.
okay, we will be doing it the next day. Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
because that will we will introduce what like string manipulation, like remove, replace everything, like what all you can do with a string itself. Okay, we will cover
Okay.
it with that. Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
sure. A good session. And if you have a particular use case like these two parameters you want or anything like that, like please share it. We will cover with that only. Okay, like
Okay, yeah, we'll do that.
yeah, if you do that, that's best because the thing is not to learn Dynamo, it's to learn Dynamo and to apply it on our projects, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to teach this theory, this node,
Mhm.
what are data types and things like that. Because we are AAC people, right? We are not
Yeah.
programmers. We don't care whether it's a variable, it's a like those things are important. But first get used to it and then I would suggest learn those. Like the both method of learning works. For me, a project-based approach works better. Okay, so that's why I prefer it. Some may prefer that process of learning also, but it's up to individuals. So for today, we are going to stop over here. Unless anybody has any doubts, would love to take them now. Like
Aren't you
any
going to
doubts
take
or
recording of
suggestions?
this?
Yeah, I think Sagar will be recording this and sharing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am recording the sessions, all the sessions, and will be shared. Will be shared. Will be shared. No issues.
Okay, yeah. Thanks.
So, so whatever we are making the scripts and everything, like it's okay. It's available. It will be made available. If nobody has any questions, then I think we will conclude for today. But if you have any questions, like feel free to speak
Uh,
up.
sir, sir,
Yeah,
sir,
yeah,
uh, sir,
yeah.
will you also be teaching Revit projects on how to do it with Dynamo?
Like Revit projects, how to do it with Dynamo. I don't get like I will be teaching how you can generate Revit elements with Dynamo. Okay, so I can show you something like not. So we will be going step by step. We won't be covering very complex graphs right away. Okay, but we will be covering going into much more what will I say complex graphs going forward. Like if I open this, or else I will show you from my profile only. It's easier. Uh, we will be covering like how you will create Revit elements in Dynamo. Where is this? Show all resources. No, not this. I will show you what we'll be covering later on. Where are my posts? Yeah. So we will be covering almost like, and you can request for something else to be covered also. So we will be covering how you can generate things like this, like how you can automatically generate beams from CAD files in Revit and things like that. Okay, these scripts will be covering and also how these scripts were made, like what is the logic behind it. Okay, so we will be covering this going forward. Okay, but the complexity of this is much higher. If I cover it today before covering the basics, it will be very difficult. But we will be covering this, but at a much later stage. If you want to take a look at this script, you can just go over there and download it. Okay, so the scripts are all available in my profile. You can simply go over here and download it. Okay, but yeah, we will be covering this at a later stage. If you mean by Revit, that's what you're asking, we will be covering it. Does that answer your question, Rohit?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And language wise also, like if you want me to speak in Hindi, तो मतलब मेरे को कोई problem नहीं है, ठीक है, पूछ लो, ऐसा कोई बात नहीं है. Like,
और
uh,
सर जैसे ये कोर्स करेंगे हम तो
huh.
फिर कंपनी में हमें किस प्रोफाइल में जॉब मिलेगी?
Look, the course will teach you a concept. Okay. Now the job, if you want, like there are digital roles. Okay, like digital engineers and digital designers and computational engineers and things like that. Okay, but those roles exist, to be frank, only in, what will I say, quite large organizations. Okay, a smaller organization may not have it. They may have someone as a BIM specialist. Like if you look at a progression in BIM, say you become a BIM modeler, then you become a coordinator and a BIM manager. Like that is a progression. Another is you become a BIM specialist. Okay, then you become a digital delivery specialist and go on that side. Okay, so the course, but and that depends on skill at the end of the day. Okay, like how good you are at what you do, and also everything else. Right, it's not only this computation thing only. You need knowledge. If you're working in, say, digital delivery, you need to understand what is ISO 19650. You need to understand what is IFC exports, Kobe exports. Like there are 10 things: Revit skills, Navisworks skills, maybe even assemble or 5D, 4D skills. Okay, so that depends on the job profile that you want. This is a subset of skills. Okay, and the goal of this is we have to change our thinking. Like the when we are working on a project, okay, and if say something is taking 10 hours to do, the goal should not be that ठीक है मतलब रात जाग के कर दे. Okay, like stay awake all night and do it. That doesn't make sense, right? We have to increase our efficiency. So the goal of over here is, say, Revit or Autodesk cannot build every tool that we need. The thing is, for very simple task and up to a level quite complex ones also, like say deducting wall volumes from beams and things like that. Okay, generating, as I showed, like columns and beams from CAD. We develop the tools that we need, which are customized for us. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like, sir,
I understand that that is not the answer you're looking for, but what I'm trying to say that it takes a lot of things for a particular role. Huh? And I am not promising you a role, I'm promising you a skill which you can use. Okay. And that's why we are doing everything, all of this. Like our goal is to upskill the industry. Like I learned from YouTube and for free. So everything is free. We are sharing everything. The goal is, as civil engineers and construction people, we increase our efficiency. So if we are doing 100 rupees worth of work 10 days ago, in say 10 days we are doing 100 rupees worth of work, we automate our tasks so that we are doing 200 rupees worth of work. And that is how your salary goes from 10 rupees to 20 rupees. Like that's market economics, right? Why do IT people and software people gets paid so much? Because they do one thing and that is replicated thousands and thousands of times, because that's they have efficiencies of scale. I don't know whether I'm making sense, but this is kind of my theory and ideology. That's why I'm talking about it. That's why
yes, sir.
I'm into, like, that's how I got into automation. Like when I did it, I realized that if I'm doing this, I will be doing the same boring job again and again and again. It's better that I spend 10 hours now and automate that 1 hour task for me so that I don't have to ever do it again in the rest of my life. And that is how I save time for both me and from the organization that I'm working for. Like that is the value I bring.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Like, sir, I am BTech civil engineering graduate.
Huh. Yeah, I understand. Like I was there. Look, I started doing, I did it with hand, like hand drafting, then I did BIM. The thing is, if you don't increase your efficiency, okay, and I'm saying something very simple, your pay cannot increase. If you're doing 100 rupees of work, your company will pay you 1/10 of that. If you want 10 20 rupees or 30 rupees, then you need to do 300 rupees worth of work. How will you do 300 rupees worth of work? You are working 8 hours. You cannot work 24 hours to do it, right? That makes no sense. The thing is, you still have that 8 hours. You have to do more value of work. The only way you will do it is if you can do your present task with a higher efficiency. So, how will you do your present task with your higher efficiency? You will do it with automation. And if you look at IT, that is what IT has done. IT automates their own task So that's why IT can get those salaries that IT can get. Okay. Like this is my belief. Again, a personal thought, not affiliated to anyone or anything. This is totally my personal belief. But that's how I think the industry's thought needs to change to go there. And it won't happen in a day. Like I can show you 10 scripts to do, but then again it have to practice, you have to modify, you have to come up with a problem that you think you can solve. Okay. So in during these sessions, I like everyone, you can say, hey, I have this problem in my company, I would like to solve it. Okay. Share it, and then we will do a session on how we solved it. Okay, if we can. Obviously, if we can, then we'll do a session on how we solve it. Okay. It's not fixed. I don't want to come over here and say tell you like this is a fixed course, like you do okay, selection in Revit, you do this, you do that. Okay, done. Now you are on your own. So we want to solve real life challenges and go from there. Anyways, I think the time is almost up, and I can talk regarding this kind of things forever, like automation and why I think it's important in the industry. But anyway, any other questions? Sorry, I went on a tangent over there.
Sir, is it possible to make whole 3D model using Dynamo scripts?
Uh, you can make almost an entire structural model using Dynamo scripts, provided your CAD files are properly drafted. If you look, I have these scripts which makes almost an entire structural 3D model. Okay, using Dynamo scripts, but that depends on the CADs being drafted to a particular level of quality, which is often not the case. And look, it can all like I have succeeded in doing it for a simple case. If you have a complex case, maybe we can. Okay, but uh, I would not say it's impossible. It can be done, but like whether you like, I have not done it.
Sir,
Uh,
in Revit also we have Revit architectural model, structural model. Again, in that we have a lot of details over there.
so the thing is, when you're doing something with Dynamo, okay,
Yes.
Dynamo doesn't have any such limitations. If you can do it in Revit, you can do it with Dynamo. The thing comes upon the person writing the Dynamo script. Okay, the skill of that person, right? So from my past experience, I have written scripts which have automated the entire structural model, has automated Revit walls, has automated door and window placement based upon certain CAD inputs. If you look at my profile, all of these scripts and the videos are available. Okay. But the thing is, if you go and say whether everything can be done in Dynamo with one click, no. You understand? Because every building is different. There may be, your building may have a semicircular chaja.
Yes.
Okay. And the script doesn't work because the script, so the computers are pretty dumb. Okay. The computers need to be told specifically what to do in every case.
Okay. Here our input is more important
So this,
to get the desired output.
so I am being frank. I'm telling you, apart from Dynamo, say AI or anything, I don't think it's going to replace the architect or the engineer or the modeler at this stage. Okay. Maybe 10 years from now, but not today. 10 years from now, also unlikely. Anyways, but not today. There are technologies which show they can do it, one, but I don't see it happening anytime in the industry. Like, because there are still human inputs needed. Like, so the thing is, if it becomes too complex a task, if you ask me whether you can design a building with Dynamo, yes, you can, but can you code that task? You understand what I'm saying? Can you write
Yes.
all of those ifs and that entire logic that goes into making a building? You have to do it in scripts, which itself is a major task. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay. So Dynamo is just like it can automate the similar tasks or like donkey work can remove and we
So I
can.
would say start there. Start there, go into geometry, go into that. But if you expect, like, look, there is expectation, it's not magic. So if you think you will learn Dynamo and next day you will go to your job and click a button and your entire work will be done for the day, that's not going to happen.
Okay. And one more question is like, sir, is it cloud based? If suppose I have created some script
No,
for
no, 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 no.
one
It's file based.
project, and if I have to use that same script for the another project, can I use
That,
that?
yeah, that you can do. That's not an issue.
Okay.
The scripts are all separate files. This is totally dealing from Revit. So you can open Dynamo in another file and run this script. Okay. So those things are all delinked. So that's not an issue. But there is nothing to do with cloud over here. This is file based thing. Okay. You can store it in OneDrive if you want cloud, but that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. If anyone has anything else, we will take it, or else we will end the session for today.
सर ये रैबिट कितना आना चाहिए डायनेमो चलाने से पहले?
At least basics to आना चाहिए. You have to at least know the basics, because what you cannot, if you don't know how to draw a wall in Revit, you cannot have any idea how to do it in Dynamo. If I say place windows in Dynamo, you won't be able to place windows in Dynamo because you don't know that you need a wall first in Revit to place the windows in Dynamo. Okay. Revit basics you need. Like, if you don't have the basics of Revit, don't go into Dynamo. Spend at least 1 year with Revit basics before you go into Dynamo.
और सर जैसे रैबिट की जॉब रैबिट सीख के क्या बोलते हैं बिम मॉडलर की जॉब करें या फिर पहले डायनेमो सीख लें फिर
Job
डायनेमो
करो.
की जॉब करें?
You won't get a Dynamo job without ever having Revit experience. If you want, like, this is again my opinion. Okay, I don't think any company will hire a person who says they have never worked in Revit and only works with Dynamo. Okay, this is an add-on skill to your Revit and BIM skills. It's not what will I say, exclusive to Revit. So I would say if you're starting your journey, learn Revit, start a Revit job, learn Dynamo on the side, upskill, and then apply for your next job. But without BIM experience, without AEC experience, I would say go to a construction site and learn. Because if you cannot use these tools and everything, these are meant for like automating our task, right? So if you don't understand construction, if you don't understand building design, what will you do learning Dynamo? Because your goal is not to become a coder tomorrow, right? You understand what I'm saying? This is meant to make those parts of your life easier. Once you're doing those things, that's when you can use the scripts to make your life easier. So you don't know what Kobe is right now. So go and learn what Kobe is first. Then you will understand why I am showing what I am showing.
यस सर.
Okay.
सौरभ,
Yeah.
हाँ मुझे थोड़ा सा एक प्रैक्टिकल
हाँ.
इशू है पूछना है.
हाँ.
तो मेरा जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है वहाँ पे एक रेविट 16 का वर्जन है, ओल्डर वर्जन.
Okay.
तो मेरा इशू मेन प्रॉब्लम ऐसा है कि वहाँ पे अभी ये जो डायनामो है वो न्यूअर वर्जन के लिए तो रेविट के साथ आ रहा है, लेकिन जो हमारे जैसे जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है पुराने जो जहाँ पे 16 और उसके पुराना वर्जन है वहाँ पे डायनामो यानी एक तो अवेलेबल नहीं है. और हमने एटोडेस्क से वो एक स्मॉल एक पुराना 1.2 करके एक वर्जन है उसको तो इंस्टॉल कर लिया है, लेकिन उसमें ये जो लाइब्रेरी अवेलेबिलिटी है वो नहीं है उसमें. यानी कोई भी आपने जो अभी स्क्रिप्ट बताया है यानी जो
No, so this script that I showed ये काम करेगा 1.2 में भी, ठीक है. And I would recommend something because I think you already मतलब देखो Autodesk का जो फंडा है they will support 3 years, okay, like 3 Revit versions. So if you're in 16, you have lost support for your Revit version for like what? Already 2020 is the last supported version right now, right? So it's already 4 years behind the last supported Autodesk version.
हाँ नहीं लेकिन उनका इशू हमारा ऐसा हुआ है कि हमने ऑलरेडी 15 पहले 15 था तो अपडेट होके 16 हो चुका है, लेकिन इसके आगे अपडेट नहीं हो पा रहा है.
हाँ, but Autodesk, these are all subscription based, right? Like I don't know whatever.
नो ये परचेज किया हुआ है लाइसेंस.
Okay.
अभी हाँ अभी वो सिस्टम बंद किया है ना उन्होंने.
Like
तो हमारा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन आगे चेंज करने का उनका ये नहीं है क्योंकि उन्होंने इन्वेस्टमेंट बहुत कर चुके हैं पहले.
I understand.
तो हमारे लिमिटेशन यहाँ तक रुक गए. तो अभी मेन हमारा इशू ऐसा हो रहा है कि जो नए फीचर है नया जो भी
you can do it with Dynamo 1.2, okay, but I will give you the very like straight cut answer, ठीक है. Your solution lies in negotiating with Autodesk. because the problem is if you keep on working in 16
हाँ.
world over, whatever the, like, forget Dynamo, what BIM content is even available, say download or any consultant,
Yes.
they won't be supporting it going forward. You
Okay.
understand, nobody is, for one person is going to port and convert everything to 16 version, like say Revit City or
Yes, yes,
BIM
yes.
objects. So
Yes, yes, I understand.
you understand, right? I understand your problem. Like, this is a different problem. I am not gonna
Uh,
go into that. But my suggestion would be to go and negotiate with the Autodesk reseller and go into the subscription, because that's how Autodesk is running the products right now, right?
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, thanks. But currently इस उसको अभी कुछ यानी अगर हमने डायनामो 1.2 तो लिया मुझे
You can use it. You can use
हाँ,
it.
लेकिन
The
उसके लिए जो
scripts,
ये नोट्स और लाइब्रेरी स्क्रिप्ट्स जो जितने आपने अभी जो डाउनलोड करके अवेलेबिलिटी दिखाई ना कि जो
no. So I will be very.
लाइब्रेरीज जो है.
So I will tell you something. If you're, I have used Dynamo 1.2 and even 0.
ओके.
तो उसमें क्या होगा, आपका ELE सेम होगा, दिखने
हाँ.
में थोड़ा अलग होगा।
राइट,
ये
राइट.
ब्लैक नहीं होगा, ये थोड़ा दिखने में अलग होगा।
ओके.
मतलब आपके पास अभी 16 है तो आप खोलिए डायनामो और देखिए, ये सेम लिस्ट होगा, ठीक
हाँ.
है?
हाँ.
और आप वहाँ पे भी में जाएंगे रेविट के अंदर, आपको ये सब कुछ मिलेगा, देखने में सिर्फ अलग होगा। मगर
ओके.
आज मैं जितना दिखाया ना, मैं आज बहुत
हम्म.
सिंपल फीचर्स दिखाया,
हाँ, हाँ.
आपको डायनामो 1.2 में भी वो सब मिलेगा।
ओके,
मतलब
ओके.
ये वाला नोट भी आपको मिलेगा, ये भी मिलेगा, शायद यहाँ पे ये सिंबल नहीं रहेगा, ये ब्लैक के जाएगा, थोड़ा ग्रेइश होगा,
हाँ, हाँ.
ठीक है? मगर ये आज में जो जो दिखाया सब कुछ है 1.2 में।
नहीं, थोड़ा-सा इश्यू ऐसा हो रहा है कि हम मेरा एक्चुअली प्रॉब्लम ऐसा है कि हम जो स्ट्रक्चरल लिंक मॉडल है, उसको
हाँ
हम हमारे आर्किटेक्चरल इसमें से सबट्रैक्ट यानी जॉइंट ज्योमेट्री से उसको ये करने वाले हैं।
हाँ
तो
हाँ
उसके लिए जो स्क्रिप्ट बनती है, उसमें जो
हाँ
एक जॉइंट एलिमेंट डॉट जॉइन ज्योमेट्री करके एक नोड आता है,
हाँ।
वो उसमें अवेलेबल नहीं हो पा रहा है। मेन
उसका
प्रैक्टिकल इश्यू
नहीं,
वही वही हो रही है कि
वो प्रॉब्लम मेरे को देखना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि ये एकदम
हाँ,
आप पर्टिकुलर नोड अवेलेबल है या 1.2 में या
हाँ,
नहीं, वो
हाँ, हाँ,
मेरे को देखना पड़ेगा, ठीक है? मगर
हाँ,
मेरे को जितना याद है वो है 1.2 में अवेलेबल, क्योंकि डेविड एपीआई में ये फंक्शनलिटी था। बट
हाँ,
अगेन वो देखना पड़ेगा
हाँ।
आपका
और
ये
मैंने वो
पर्टिकुलर।
जो पैकेजेस है उसमें ऊपर से
हाँ,
आते हैं ना, तो उसको
ये
हमने
पैकेजेस का
डाउनलोड कर
सपोर्ट नहीं जाएगा, हाँ, दैट
हाँ,
आई
तो
एग्री।
वहाँ
हाँ
पे ट्राई किया बहुत, लेकिन वो जो अवेलेबिलिटी है सब हायर वर्जन के लिए है उनके
हाँ हाँ
पास।
हाँ
ये
हाँ
लोअर वर्जन के लिए और हमारे जैसे बहुत से ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होंगे जहाँ इंडिया में और इधर जहाँ पे जो ये मेजर हमारे यानी ये जो वर्जन यूज़र है और जहाँ रिस्ट्रिक्ट होके वहीं पे रुके हुए हैं ना, उनके लिए ये मेजर इश्यू है कि
हाँ। बट
हम ये जो टास्क है जो जैसे हमें स्ट्रक्चरल लिंक करना है, लिंक करके सब ये करना है ना माइनस ये
वो
इसके लिए
आप
हम थोड़ा स्क्रिप्ट ढूंढ रहे हैं, तो वो
आपका
नहीं मिल पा रहा है, ऐसा हो रहा
आपका
है।
वो प्रॉब्लम मेरे को एग्जैक्टली चेक करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि 1.2 अभी प्रॉब्लम क्या है ना,
हाँ,
मैं अभी मार्केट में जाके 16 का इंस्टॉलर ढूंढूंगी भी, वो भी नहीं मिलेगा,
हाँ, हाँ, राइट।
ठीक है? मैं आपको बोल रहा हूँ, आप ये एक प्रॉब्लम, यू कैन सॉल्व दिस जॉइन वाला प्रॉब्लम, जॉइन प्रॉब्लम मोस्ट probably like with a python code or something like that, because I
ओके,
think API has that access, so that one problem can be solved.
ओके,
But long term, if you are thinking that of staying in 16, the number
हाँ,
of
हाँ,
problems that you will face,
यस, यस,
it won't be worth it.
यस, यस। नहीं,
You
हम
understand
उनको
what I'm saying?
आगे प्रमोट कर रहे हैं, लेकिन उनका कैसा है कि आप पहले वो यानी यूज़ दिखाइए ऐसा,
हाँ,
क्योंकि अभी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन स्टेज है ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का।
got it, got it. हाँ,
हाँ, और हम अभी जो भी है वो थोड़ा फाइट कर रहे हैं कि रेविट इम्प्लीमेंटेशन और सब कंसल्टेंट हमारे इंटरनल है, यानी हमें जो अभी आपने बताया कि वर्जन जो अपडेट हो रहे हैं बाहर से,
हाँ।
तो वो इशू वहाँ पे नहीं आता है, क्योंकि सब इलेक्ट्रिकल एमईपी स्ट्रक्चर सब जो कंसल्टेंट है इन हाउस है। लेकिन सभी के पास एक ही वर्जन है
अरे
16 का।
मतलब I understand all of this,
हाँ,
but
हाँ, तो
I'm
थोड़ा
saying,
हमारा ब्लॉकेज ऐसा है कि हम आगे नहीं बढ़ पा रहे हैं और हमें प्रूव करना है कि इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हो सकता है। तो
like
लेकिन
that
हम
particular problem I have to see, but the problem is I don't even have a Revit 2016 का access and Dynamo 1.2.
हाँ,
ठीक है? You understand the problem? Like if you
यस,
are
यस,
anybody you are asking to solve this problem today,
हाँ,
the problem is Autodesk does not support Revit 2016 anymore. ठीक
यस,
है? तो like it's a niche situation.
यस,
Anyways, like we can try to do it, but
ओके,
no commitments on that because I
Yes.
also don't know what's there in Revit 2016 at the moment. Yeah.
हाँ हाँ एक्चुअली
But
मेरा हाँ
today what I
इसीलिए
showed,
हाँ
if you write the same script in 2016, it will work. That much I
ओके
can guarantee you.
यस यस ओके या थैंक्स
Because today I use the features which were there in, say, from Dynamo basics only. Yeah.
ओके ओके
Yeah.
यस यस थैंक्स
Thanks.
मैं
Yeah.
चेक करता हूँ और आपको
Sure. We can collect separately. Yeah.
यस
Not an issue. Yeah.
ओके सर थैंक यू
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone has anything else? If not, I think then we will end the session.
Yeah, I mean, just a second.
Yeah.
Just one concern that I'm having. See, we believe that everybody here who's attending the Dynamo course, at least they should have, Revit knowledge and 1 year experience at least, as Saurav said, so that there will be, no confusion in between what exactly is happening, because you must understand Revit and the BIM process. Then, Dynamo is a advanced part of what we are doing traditionally in let's say Revit or anything. Okay, so please be very sure that you have a sufficient experience, and then you can attend this. Otherwise, you can learn the BIM tools, I mean the Revit and everything, and then you can come back again for this Dynamo course, no problem. Okay. So I guess we can conclude the today's session, and all the very best. Keep practicing. Without practicing, it won't be happening. I'll tell you. Um, I mean, if you are, um developing your skills into this, and if you're practicing every single day, okay, don't see like कि अभी मेरे पास टाइम नहीं है या फिर ऐसा मत करो. यू कैन गो, यू कैन प्रैक्टिस, यू कैन सैटरडे संडे आप बैठिए फुल टाइम इसमें करिए. ये करेंगे आप तो यू विल बी हैव अ रियली यू विल बी हैविंग अ रियली गुड फ्यूचर अहेड. ओके, so let's get started, and all the very best. We'll meet tomorrow. Saurav will update
Sure.
कि कैसे कैसे सेशंस कैसे प्लान करना है, क्या नहीं प्लान करना है, टाइमिंग्स एंड एवरीथिंग, एंड यू कैन अटेंड द सेम. ओके
ठीक है, मैं एक चीज सगा सिर्फ दिखा देता हूँ लोगों
जी.
का. दो क्वेश्चन था रोहित का मेनली. ठीक है, जो
हम्म.
क्या है, व्हाई आई सेड यू विल नीड एक्सपीरियंस फर्स्ट. आई एम जस्ट शोइंग यू टू जॉब पोस्टिंग. वन इज फ्रॉम दाद इन पुणे, okay, which is of an computational architect. So you still need 5 to 7 years of AEC experience, okay, and you need all of this still. You understand? Like even if you are working as a computational architect, you still need to have those level of experience and have those skills before you can go on to say I will do only that. And another is for a BIM specialist with ACOM. Yep, it is not load. I don't know why I'm. So these are the roles that mostly require Dynamo, but it requires Dynamo in addition to other things. It's not only that you only learn Dynamo and that's it. Where can I get the yes? So that's what I'm saying. Okay. Anyways, uh, yeah, that's all from my end.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Yeah, I think we'll end it, Sagar. Yeah.
Yes, sure, absolutely. Okay, everybody, have a very good night. We'll meet again.
Yeah, sure.